not to this extent. And I think the ceiling that Alex Eala has is obviously that much higher. And I'm going to bring in a little boxing here because my dad wanted me to be a boxer, but I chose tennis. But Manny Pacquiao.
Good call.
Manny Pacquiao, we saw him when he, was at the top of his game and alongside Roger Federer.
Before Indian Wells even begins, before a single ball has been struck, before the draws are announced, before the first serve of the tournament flies across the net, the conversation has already been completely hijacked by one name. Not the world number one, not the defending champion, not the player with the most Grand Slam titles, or the highest ranking, or the biggest contract. The conversation, all of it, every corner of it, belongs to Alex Eala. And the experts have not just taken notice, they have completely lost their composure over it.
What did you make of her run in Miami and her as a player?
Yeah, I thought it was really fascinating. She uses her leftiness really well. When she went on that run, it was really impressive how she handled the big moments on the stadium court.
Mary Carrillo, one of the most respected voices in tennis broadcasting with decades of experience covering the sport at the highest level, said it plainly and without hesitation. Alex Eala is doing something she has never seen from a player at this stage of their career. Not the ranking, not the results alone, the cultural footprint. The way she has captured imaginations across an entire continent and turned casual observers into devoted, passionate, travel-across-the-world fans. Carrillo has covered Steffi Graf. She has covered Serena Williams. She has sat courtside for some of the most historic moments in women's tennis history. And she is saying that what Alex Eala is generating right now is different. It is special in a way that the sport has genuinely not seen before from someone this young, this early in their journey. Former world number one and tennis analyst Chris Evert, a woman who understands better than almost anyone alive what it takes to become a true icon of the sport, has been effusive in her assessment of Eala's potential. Evert has spoken about the completeness of her game, the tactical maturity that sits so far beyond her years, and the mental composure under pressure that typically takes players a decade of professional experience to develop. But what Evert keeps coming back to, what she cannot stop emphasizing every time her name comes up in conversation, is the intangible quality. The thing that separates good players from phenomena, the ability to make an entire stadium feel something. Evert says Alex Eala has it. She says she has had it since the first time she watched her compete at a serious level. And she says the tennis world needs to wake up to what is standing right in front of them. Tennis Channel analyst and former tour player Justin Gimelstob has been even more direct. He has gone on record calling Alex Eala the most marketable player the WTA has produced in a generation. Not the highest ranked, not necessarily the most decorated yet, the most marketable. And in the modern landscape of professional sports, where the ability to connect with audiences across platforms and cultures and demographics is worth as much as any trophy, that is an extraordinary statement. Gimelstob has pointed specifically to the Indian Wells buildup as evidence that something seismic is happening around her presence on tour. The pre-tournament buzz, the ticket demand, the social media conversation, all of it pointing in one direction, all of it carrying one name louder than any other. And then there is Patrick Mouratoglou, the legendary coach who has worked with Serena Williams and built some of the most successful careers in modern tennis history, who has spoken about Alex Eala with a reverence that people in his position rarely extend to players outside their own camp. Mouratoglou does not hand out praise carelessly. He has been inside the machinery of elite tennis long enough to know the difference between a player who is having a good run and a player who is building something permanent. And he has said publicly that Alex Eala belongs in the second category, that her trajectory, her mentality, and the movement she is generating around her career suggest a player who is not just passing through the conversation, but is in the process of rewriting it entirely. Let that collection of voices sink in for a moment. These are not fan accounts posting from their bedrooms at midnight. These are not social media personalities chasing engagement with manufactured hot takes. These are some of the most credible, most experienced, most deeply knowledgeable voices in the entire tennis ecosystem. People who have spent their professional lives studying this sport, watching players develop, identifying what separates the good from the great from the truly generational. And every single one of them is saying the same thing about Alex Eala before Indian Wells. She is the most famous player in women's tennis right now, and the WTA needs to act like it. Now let's talk about why this expert consensus is sending shockwaves through the tennis establishment. Because the declaration that Alex Eala is the most famous player in the WTA right now is not just a compliment. It is a disruption. It is a challenge to the established order of how tennis stardom is supposed to work. It is a statement that carries enormous implications for the sport's future, and enormous discomfort for the people who have benefited most from the way things have always been done. For decades, the architecture of WTA stardom has followed a very predictable pattern. You climb the rankings, you win a Grand Slam or two, you get the big endorsement deals, you get the magazine covers, you get the primetime court assignments at the majors. Fame follows achievement in a very linear, very controlled, very establishment-approved sequence. The system decides when you are ready for the spotlight. The system decides how big your platform gets and how fast it grows. And the system has always reserved the very top of that pyramid for players from a very specific set of countries and backgrounds. Alex Eala has broken that pattern so completely that the experts do not even have the right language to describe what she has done. She has not waited for the system to approve her ascent. She has not climbed the rankings slowly enough for the establishment to feel comfortable with her rise. She has not come from the countries or the backgrounds that the WTA's traditional power structure was built to celebrate. She is a 20-year-old from the Philippines who has built the most passionate, most devoted, most globally distributed fan base in women's tennis right now. And she has done it entirely on her own terms. The numbers are staggering when you actually stop and look at them. The social media engagement surrounding Alex Eala heading into Indian Wells dwarfs what you see around players ranked significantly higher than her. The conversation volume, the tweets, the posts, the YouTube views, the comment sections overflowing with fans from the Philippines, from across Southeast Asia, from every corner of the world where her story has taken root, is operating at a level that the WTA has never seen from a player at her stage of career development. Not even close. And the experts are pointing to something specific about Indian Wells that makes this moment even more significant. Indian Wells draws one of the most sophisticated, most passionate tennis crowds on the entire tour. These are not casual spectators who wandered in off the street. These are serious tennis fans who travel specifically for the tournament, who follow the sport closely, who understand what they are watching when they sit in those desert stands. And the reports coming in about ticket demand, about which matches fans are most desperate to attend, about which name is generating the most pre-tournament excitement, all of it points directly at Alex Eala. The WTA is sitting on something they have never had before, and the experts want to know urgently, loudly, and with zero patience for corporate deflection. What exactly are they going to do with it? Because the history here is not encouraging. We all remember the Australian Open. We all remember what happened when the most talked about, most crowd-generating player at the tournament got assigned to courts that could not hold a fraction of the fans who showed up specifically for her. We remember the lines stretching beyond the stadium. We remember the fans who traveled from across the world and could not get through the doors. We remember Jessica Pegula standing up and calling it exactly what it was: disrespect. Indian Wells is a different tournament with different facilities and different scheduling logistics. But the fundamental question is exactly the same. Will the WTA look at what Alex Eala has built, look at the extraordinary demands surrounding her presence at this tournament, and finally give her the stage she deserves? Or will they repeat the same catastrophic mistake they made in Melbourne and force the most famous player in their sport to compete in spaces that cannot contain the movement she has created? The experts going off about this are not just celebrating her fame. They are issuing a warning. They are telling the WTA directly, you have an opportunity here that does not come along very often. You have a player who is doing something genuinely historic for your sport in a region of the world you have been trying to reach for years. You have a player whose story is generating mainstream cultural attention that goes far beyond the traditional tennis audience. You have a player who is making people care about women's tennis who have never cared about it before. And the question of whether you are smart enough, humble enough, and forward-thinking enough to maximize that opportunity is one the entire tennis world is watching very closely right now. Because here is what the declaration of Alex Eala as the most famous player in the WTA actually means at its deepest level. It means the fans have already voted, not with a ballot or a survey or an official poll, with their attention, their passion, their money, their time, and their hearts. The EA Army has made a decision about who the face of women's tennis is right now, and that decision did not require the WTA's approval or the media's blessing or the establishment's comfort. It happened organically, unstoppably, in the way that genuine cultural phenomena always happen, from the ground up, powered by love for something real. Indian Wells is now carrying a weight it has never carried before. It is not just a prestigious tournament on the WTA calendar, it is a test. A test of whether the WTA has learned anything from everything that has happened over the past several months. A test of whether the sport's governing body is capable of recognizing a generational moment and rising to meet it. A test of whether the most famous player in women's tennis right now is finally going to be treated like the phenomenon she already is. The experts have spoken. The fans are watching. The entire tennis world is holding its breath. And somewhere in the desert of Indian Wells, on courts that had better be big enough to hold what is coming, Alex Eala is preparing to walk out and do what she always does. Compete with everything she has, carry her nation on her shoulders, and remind every single person watching exactly why the conversation always comes back to her. She is not the most famous player in the WTA because someone decided she should be. She is the most famous player in the WTA because she earned it. Every match, every grind, every moment of brilliance under pressure. Every tearful Filipino fan in the stands who traveled across an ocean just to be in the same arena. Every expert who cannot stop talking about her, no matter how hard the establishment tries to redirect the conversation. Indian Wells is next. The most famous player in women's tennis is coming. And the only real question left is whether the WTA is finally ready to give her the stage the world is already demanding. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think the WTA will finally get it right at Indian Wells and give Alex Eala the platform she deserves? Is she genuinely the most famous player in women's tennis right now? And to every single member of the EA Army watching this, are you ready for Indian Wells? Hit that like button, subscribe for the most unfiltered tennis content anywhere on the internet, and turn on notifications, because this story is about to reach a level nobody is fully prepared for.